Hi everybody, in today's video I'm going to talk you through my real world review of the Sony 50mm F1.2 G Master lens, having used it at the last 100 weddings. So with all my camera lens reviews or my camera body reviews, I like to give my conclusion at the start of the video so you can get to the good stuff and then go about your daily business. And I suppose the question is it worth buying the Sony 50mm F1.2 G Master lens? Well, no, probably not. I've recently picked up the 50mm F1.4 G Master lens, and I think comparing these side by side, I think for 99% of wedding photographers or hobbyists or people who earn money from taking photos, this is the lens to go for. I think had Sony released both of these lenses at the same time, I would have jumped for the 1.4. But at the time when Sony announced the 1.2, we really didn't have that many options, and so the 1.2 G Master was the way to go. But I think right now, this is the one that people should be buying. But that's for another video. In this video, I'm going to talk you through the 1.2, how I use it at weddings, the good, the bad, and actually there is no ugly, so just the good and the bad. So the 50mm f1.2. So this is the lens. I'm going to talk you through a couple of the the things that are on the lens. So we do have these little function buttons. There is 2 of them on this lens, which helps if you're shooting in portrait and then moving to landscape. You always have access to these buttons. These are customizable. I personally have them turned off because I don't use them at all, and I'm always catching them. Here we have the aperture ring. It's a lovely clickable aperture ring that goes from 1.2 to f16, and then you have a good click that gets you into the A mode, where you can then assign one of your dials on the back of your camera or on the front of your camera to control aperture. That's how you would do that. Other things we have on the lens, we have the AF/MF switch here on the side, which you can click, or you can control it in camera. That's totally up to you. And then if we go around this way, we have the click, non-click for the aperture ring. So for video shooters, they can then slide this nice, and we have no clicks whatsoever. It is a beast. No getting away from it. I personally always use filters on the front. UV filters just protects the lens from any bashing, scratching, things like that, because I do have a tendency to bash things against the walls when I'm using these things. So I always have those. Always spend money if you are going to do it. Buy good quality ones, because you are putting glass in front of the glass, so you want to make sure it's good and not cheap. So yeah, that is the 50mm f1.2. So back in March of 2021, Sony announced the 50mm G Master lens. My copy arrived, I think, in May of 2021, after a little bit of a slight delay. Obviously we had COVID lockdowns and things like that, and the 50mm has been with me ever since. I photographed 100 weddings on it. It has never let me down. It's never missed focus at any critical point on a wedding day. It has been an outstanding lens. Now, I pair the 50mm 1.2 with a Sony A1, which is a 50.1 megapixel camera. So I have 50 megapixels at 50mm, but I also have the ability to jump into APS-C mode on the Sony A1, and I get to about a 75mm reach using this lens, and it still produces a 21 megapixel file. So a 50mm for me on a Sony A1 is a 50 and a 75. It's been incredibly versatile having this stunning 50mm lens. So let's talk about the positives of the Sony 50mm 1.2 G Master lens. The images that it produces have a feel to them that is, I think, quite unique. The 1.2 aperture does give it a look and a feel that no other lens from Sony right now can produce. Yes, compared to the 1.4, you kind of have to pixel peep a little bit, but you can see a difference. The 50mm, whether it be the F1.2 or the 1.4, it is a forgiving focal length. It doesn't distort faces or features of the people like, you know, a wider lens can do. If you have the space, a 50mm lens could be all the lens you need on a wedding day. You know, yes, it's not as wide as a 35, but it has a little bit more reach, but you do need the space. The autofocus on this lens, when shot at f1.2 on the new Sony bodies, so A92s, A1s, A7 IV, A7R5, is pretty faultless. I can genuinely say that I've never had an image that was that far out of focus that I couldn't deliver, and I've certainly never had any issues of any kind of important moments. You know, the lens has never let me down. Optically, this lens is pretty much free from any purple fringing. You know, and that as a wedding photographer is very important because we're often shooting, you know, speeches against harsh window light and things like that. So the negatives of this lens, well, obviously it's quite a big lens. It's quite heavy. It's quite big. It has a large filter at the front. So it is a big lens. And you know, after shooting this lens on a wedding day, you know you've shot the wedding using quite a heavy lens. That being said, I've never thought it was too heavy. You know, there's a trade-off. A 1.2 lens are always going to be big and heavy, and if you want that 1.2, then you're going to have to go with this big boy. The only other negative really is there is a bit of a vignette, quite a strong vignette at f1.2. Now, I personally quite like that. That doesn't put me off. I quite like that natural look of the vignette coming from the lens rather than applying a vignette in post, which I think can look quite fake. You can obviously correct that in Lightroom using the profile lens correction, but sometimes with Lightroom it can add a little bit too much back with the corrections. So there you go, that's my 100 wedding review of the Sony 50mm F1.2 G Master lens. If you are a photographer that needs that 1.2, whether it be you're permanently in low light situations like at weddings, or you want that 1.2 bokeh, and there is a 1.2 bokeh, you can see it. Certainly on the Sony A1s, you can see, because you've got 50 megapixels to be looking at, you can see that this is smoother than the 1.4 G Master lens, but it does have its trade-offs with its weight, its size and its price. I think for most people, the 1.4 G Master is the one to be going for, but I totally get why people would want that 1.2. I've used it for 100 weddings. I've absolutely loved it, but I have made that decision to sell it, move it on. It's going to be packaged up later once I finish recording this video, and I will be moving over permanently to the 50mm 1.4 G Master lens. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you did want to read a little bit more about this lens and see some more images and some close-up shots of the lens, I will leave a link in the description below to my website where I've done a proper in-depth review, written up review of the Sony 50mm F1.2 G Master lens. I will be back in a few weeks' time when I will be talking about another lens, which is the 20mm f1.8 G lens, which is a lens I absolutely love to use at weddings. And once I've shot probably 10 weddings, I will be back talking about the f1.4 G Master lens. So until those videos, look after yourself, and I'll see you soon.